Imagine winning the lottery and deciding your first big purchase should be a fleet of inflatable hot tubs. Because nothing says financial legacy like drowning in lukewarm plastic. Or picture someone inheriting a fortune and immediately using it to buy an ostrich farm in New Jersey, only to discover ostriches are basically velociraptors with feathers and bills. These aren't stories of bad luck or tough markets. This is human genius applied in the dumbest possible ways. And the wild part? These are just the warm-ups. The deeper we go, the more spectacularly idiotic the financial freefalls get. 1. A guy in the UK won £9 million in the lottery. Sounds like freedom, right? Nope. He went on a world tour of bad decisions that included buying racehorses, endless parties, and gold-plated bathroom fixtures, because nothing screams smart investor like peeing into a solid gold toilet. Within a decade, he was broke and begging for construction jobs. Basically, he managed to speedrun the financial collapse most people take 40 years to achieve. Imagine hitting the jackpot and still ending up Googling cheap ramen hacks. That's not just bad luck, that's talent. 2. A woman inherited nearly $6 million and decided her best investment was, wait for it, breeding alpacas. Not houses, not stocks, not even a Taco Bell franchise. Alpacas. Because when you think generational wealth, you think South American camelids. Spoiler, she lost almost everything within 5 years. Turns out the global market for luxury alpaca sweaters isn't exactly Amazon Prime material. But hey, at least she got to live out her dream of managing a herd of angry wool piñatas while her bank account burned faster than a Black Friday TV deal. 3. There's a professional athlete, no need to name him because this story is painfully common, who earned over $100 million and still filed for bankruptcy. His genius move? Buying a fleet of luxury cars, one for every mood, despite the fact that he could only ever drive one at a time. It's like hoarding Netflix subscriptions when you already share your cousin's password. He also bought mansions he never lived in and invested in a record label that signed exactly 0 artists. Within years, he was flat broke, proving once again that talent on the field doesn't translate to basic arithmetic often. 4. In the early 2000s, a guy decided he'd get rich buying Beanie Babies as an investment. Yes, the stuffed toys you won at arcades. He filled his house, literally, wall to wall, with plush animals worth about as much as lint. When the market inevitably collapsed, he was left with thousands of wide-eyed fabric gremlins staring at him while his finances crumbled. Imagine explaining to your bankruptcy lawyer that you lost your house because you bet everything on a polyester giraffe named Twinkles. That's not a portfolio, that's a cry for help. 5. There was a man in Nevada who lost millions playing slot machines. Not poker, not blackjack, slot machines, the literal toddler toy of casinos. He would sit there for hours, feeding the machine like it was his retirement plan. And when he lost, he just convinced himself that the next pull would hit. Spoiler, it never did. He basically turned millions of dollars into flashing lights and casino carpeting. The real jackpot? The casino execs who probably sent him a thank you card every Christmas for funding their kids' Ivy League tuition. 6. A Silicon Valley visionary once sank his fortune into building a theme park dedicated to vegetables. Yes, vegetables. His dream was to create a Disneyland, but instead of Mickey Mouse, you'd get dancing broccoli and a talking carrot mascot. Shockingly, no one wanted to spend $50 to watch a tomato sing. The park folded in less than a year, taking his millions down with it. Honestly, the only people who got rich were the contractors who got paid to build a giant lettuce slide. If you ever want proof that money can't buy taste, look no further than the man who thought spinach could compete with Space Mountain. 7. There's a rapper who blew through millions on jewelry. So much jewelry that he literally couldn't wear it all. He had diamond-encrusted forks, a jewel-studded remote control, and even a chain shaped like SpongeBob SquarePants. Because nothing says timeless financial security like iced-out children's cartoons. Within a few years, he was broke and selling off his collection at pawn shops for pennies on the dollar. Imagine pawning a $200,000 diamond SpongeBob chain only to get offered $5,000 and a free toaster. That's the kind of humiliation money buys you on the way down. 8. A couple once spent their entire retirement fund chasing a Nigerian email scam. You know the one. I am a prince, and I need your help transferring $40 million. They poured in hundreds of thousands of dollars, convinced they'd get rich. Spoiler, the prince never showed up. Their kids eventually found out when they noticed mom and dad were selling furniture to help finalize the transaction. If stupidity had a stock market, these two would be blue-chip investors. They turned the oldest internet joke into their actual financial plan. 9. A man once bought a literal island after winning the lottery. He wanted to live like a king. Problem, he didn't account for the fact that islands require upkeep, like boats, fuel, electricity, and staff who don't want to work for seashells. Within a decade, he was bankrupt, his private kingdom abandoned and falling apart. The lesson here? Don't buy geography unless you've got the GDP of an actual country. Otherwise, congratulations, you're the broke landlord of sand and seagulls. 10. A woman in Florida got a huge divorce settlement and immediately spent most of it on psychic readings. Yes, psychic readings. She blew through hundreds of thousands of dollars asking strangers with crystal balls if she'd find love again. The answer was apparently always yes, but it'll cost $10,000 more. By the time she realized she was being scammed, she was back at square one. She didn't find love, but she did find a bankrupt checking account and the title of most gullible client in psychic history. 11. A guy thought he could get rich flipping cars, so he bought dozens of luxury vehicles, all at once. The problem? He never sold them. He just kept them parked on his lawn like a low-budget Fast and Furious museum. Neighbors complained, the bank repossessed half of them, and he filed for bankruptcy within 2 years. Basically, he turned his yard into a graveyard of bad decisions. Imagine explaining to creditors that your business plan was just owning cars loudly. 12. A YouTuber decided to blow his entire savings on a single viral stunt, filling a swimming pool with Orbeez. Thousands of dollars later, he had a backyard swamp of jelly balls, a furious landlord, and no monetization. The internet moved on in 2 days, but his debt lasted for years. It's the modern equivalent of setting money on fire, but with more squishy cleanup. The only viral thing about it was his credit score dying in real time. 13. A man in New Jersey spent his life savings buying scratch-off tickets every single day. His logic? One big win would set him up for life. The reality? He won tiny amounts here and there, never enough to cover the addiction. Eventually, he was broke, alone, and surrounded by more losing tickets than a conspiracy theorist's corkboard. He basically built a house out of try-again cards. Somewhere, the Lottery Commission probably named a break room after him in gratitude. 14. A wealthy heiress once inherited millions, then launched her own luxury candle brand. Unfortunately, her candles smelled like wet dog mixed with burnt toast. Nobody bought them. She doubled down, pouring even more money into marketing campaigns that no amount of Instagram filters could save. Within a few years, her fortune had literally gone up in smoke. Ironically, the only thing her candles were good at producing. It's one thing to fail at business. It's another to be beaten by Yankee Candle. 15. A man once bought thousands of lottery tickets with the same numbers every week for years. He was convinced the universe owed him. Spoiler, it did not. By the end, he'd spent more on losing tickets than most people spend on mortgages. His retirement plan was essentially wishful thinking with worse odds than being struck by lightning while attacked by a shark. The only numbers he got right were the ones on his overdue utility bills. 16. A couple thought flipping houses was easy, so they bought 5 fixer-uppers at once. Problem, they had no construction skills, no contractors, and no clue. They blew their savings trying to renovate, but most of the houses ended up condemned before they could even list them. In the end, they weren't real estate moguls. They were just the proud owners of 5 uninhabitable monuments to overconfidence. HGTV didn't call, the bank did, repeatedly. 17. A businessman decided to corner the market on ostrich farming in the 1990s. He was convinced ostrich meat would be the next beef. He spent millions building giant ranches and importing birds. Turns out, Americans weren't ready to trade burgers for oversized bird steaks. By the end, he had acres of furious ostriches, 0 buyers, and creditors circling like vultures, which, ironically, are just uglier ostriches. He lost everything and became a cautionary tale in agricultural stupidity. Honestly, if you go broke raising animals that look like dinosaurs in drag, you kinda deserve it. 18. In the 1980s, a man cashed out his pension to invest in ostrich leather boots. Not a factory, not a business, just crates of boots he thought would triple in value. Instead, fashion moved on. People realized they didn't want to walk around looking like their feet escaped Jurassic Park, and he was left with a warehouse full of dead bird footwear. He couldn't even donate them because nobody wanted to be seen wearing what looked like cowboy cosplay gone horribly wrong. Eventually, he had to auction them off at pennies per pair, turning his dream of early retirement into an accidental museum of bad taste. Imagine explaining to your kids that their college fund vanished because Dad thought America's future was in prehistoric footwear. 19. A guy in California blew through millions collecting swords and medieval armor. He imagined himself as a modern knight, but instead of defending castles, he was defending himself from creditors. His mansion literally turned into a metal hoarder's paradise, filled with rusty helmets and axes that couldn't even cut a tomato. When he went broke, auction houses sold his collection to actual nerds who at least had the sense to cosplay at Comic-Con instead of bankrupting their lives. His fortune didn't go to heirs, investments, or even a bad business plan. It evaporated into the world's least practical Home Depot aisle. If you want a picture of financial ruin, it's a grown man bankrupt in a house stuffed with swords he never even used to fight his debt collectors. 20. There was a Florida man, of course it was Florida, who won the lottery and decided his first purchase would be a mansion with a built-in shark tank. Not a metaphorical shark tank, an actual aquarium filled with live sharks. Naturally, the upkeep cost more than his mortgage. The sharks ate thousands of dollars in food each month, and within 2 years, he was broke. The house foreclosed, the sharks were relocated, and he was left with the honor of being the only man dumb enough to go bankrupt feeding animals that would have gladly eaten him if given the chance. Honestly, it's poetic justice. If you treat life like a Bond villain, don't be surprised when the sharks eat your savings. 21. A professional boxer once spent millions building a private zoo. Tigers, lions, giraffes, you name it, he had it. The idea was that owning apex predators somehow translated into apex intelligence. Spoiler, it didn't. The animals required full-time staff, specialized vets, and mountains of cash. Within a few years, he was broke and forced to sell off the zoo like it was Craigslist for dangerous pets. Imagine the Craigslist ad, gently used tiger, good with kids, eats $1,000 of meat a week. The guy could knock people out with one punch, but apparently couldn't knock the thought into his head that a giraffe doesn't exactly pay dividends. 22. A man tried to corner the market on vintage comic books, convinced he was building the next billion-dollar portfolio. He spent everything on rare issues, filled entire climate-controlled rooms with plastic-sealed nostalgia, and bragged about his collection like it was Fort Knox. Then the comic market crashed in the 90s, and suddenly his cardboard fortune was worth less than the box it came in. He didn't retire early, he just retired into bankruptcy court. The moral? When your retirement plan depends on teenagers not losing interest in spandex superheroes, maybe you deserve to end up broke. 23. In Vegas, one guy managed to lose his entire business by betting it all on a single roulette spin. He literally sold his shop, put $135,000 on red, and lost in seconds. That's it. Game over. His empire gone faster than a Snapchat story. Casinos love to say, the house always wins. But in this case, the house didn't just win. It sent him home with an Uber receipt and a lifetime story of failure that sounds less like a financial strategy and more like a rejected Adam Sandler movie plot. 24. A self-proclaimed entrepreneur once dumped his fortune into launching a line of glow-in-the-dark golf balls. He thought golfers everywhere would want to play midnight rounds with neon orbs. Problem? Golfers are rich, but not insane. The product bombed, investors pulled out, and he was left with warehouses of glowing balls nobody wanted. He didn't build the future of sports, he built the world's most expensive rave accessory. Picture bankruptcy court explaining, "Yes, Your Honor, my financial collapse was caused by golf balls that doubled as radioactive nightlights." 25. A lottery winner once blew his money on an entourage of friends. He bought them cars, houses, and even salaries for jobs they didn't have. His mansion turned into an all-inclusive resort for freeloaders, where the only check-in policy was, "Be related to me by 3 degrees." Within a few years, the money ran out, the friends disappeared, and he was left alone in a half-empty house he couldn't afford. He basically paid millions to find out he was surrounded by leeches. A painful life lesson, but hey, at least his friends drove away in luxury cars. 26. A woman inherited millions and launched her own line of bottled water, except she decided the water should be blessed by monks. Yes, actual monks. She imported barrels of water to monasteries, paid holy men to mumble over it, then tried to sell it at $20 a bottle. Shockingly, customers didn't line up for liquid sermons. Her business collapsed, she lost her fortune, and the monks kept the paycheck. Somewhere, Evian executives were laughing so hard they probably blessed themselves. 27. One guy thought cryptocurrency was the future, not Bitcoin. He bought into a startup coin called Banana Coin, which promised profits tied to the banana industry. He poured his entire savings into it, imagining himself as the fruit-backed billionaire. Naturally, the coin tanked, the founders vanished, and he was left with nothing but memes and empty banana peels. Banana Coin turned out to be worth exactly what it sounded like, the world's most expensive smoothie ingredient. 28. A famous celebrity once spent millions building a diamond-encrusted bathtub. Not a kitchen, not a pool. A bathtub. A giant jewel-lined tub he probably used 3 times before realizing that bathing in gemstones isn't exactly a great ROI. When the debts piled up, he had to sell it for a fraction of the cost. Somewhere, a billionaire now owns it as the world's shiniest conversation piece, while the original owner showers in regret. 29. A man lost his fortune chasing penny stocks he read about in a newsletter. He convinced himself he'd found the next Apple. Spoiler: it was a shell company in someone's basement. He kept pouring in cash, ignoring every red flag, until he was broke. Basically, he turned his entire savings into confetti for stock scammers. He didn't buy Apple. He bought rotten apples off a Craigslist ad. 30. A family went broke financing their kid's dream of becoming a professional magician. They spent hundreds of thousands on costumes, props, and a stage vanishing trick that never worked. After a decade of failed shows and pity gigs, the money was gone. Imagine explaining your bankruptcy to a judge while wearing a cape. "Your Honor, my assets disappeared." No kidding. 31. A guy once sold his house to buy into a multi-level marketing scheme for miracle juice. He filled his garage with pallets of bright red bottles nobody wanted. His team quit, his wife quit, and eventually the bank quit on his mortgage. He ended up homeless while surrounded by cases of expired fruit sludge. Honestly, if you're going to lose your home, at least make it over something less embarrassing than raspberry-flavored snake oil. 32. A celebrity chef blew millions opening restaurants that only served one dish: mac and cheese. Not gourmet mac and cheese, just bowls of pasta with overpriced toppings. The hype lasted 6 months. Then everyone remembered you can make mac and cheese at home for 99 cents. The restaurants closed, the investors sued, and the chef's bank account boiled over faster than his noodles. 33. A man once inherited money and decided to invest in ostrich racing. He built a track, trained the birds, and tried to sell tickets. Shockingly, it failed, because ostriches are violent psychopaths who don't care about finishing lines. Within months, the birds trashed the track, injured handlers, and ate through his budget. The business collapsed, and he became known as the guy who went broke betting on the NASCAR of oversized chickens. 34. A woman blew her entire inheritance buying rare Elvis memorabilia, guitars, clothes, even strands of his hair. She hoarded them like they were bars of gold. But when she tried to sell them, nobody cared. Turns out the market for dead celebrity hair is smaller than she thought. She ended up broke, surrounded by jumpsuits and wigs, basically living in a Graceland-themed thrift shop. The King of Rock didn't just leave the building, he took her savings with him. 35. A Wall Street trader once lost millions because he thought shorting a stock literally meant selling it quickly. He piled in, bragged about being a genius, then watched as his brilliant strategy tanked faster than a GameStop meme investor's patience. When his boss asked what happened, he reportedly said, "I thought short meant small." Congratulations. The man trusted with millions of dollars had the same vocabulary skills as a 5th grader in spelling class. Honestly, it's shocking his firm didn't also invest in magic beans. 36. A man spent his fortune on building the world's largest private train set. He filled warehouses with miniature tracks, mountains, and fake towns, proudly giving tours of his toy empire. The catch? It was funded entirely by debt. When the creditors showed up, they weren't impressed by tiny villages. They wanted money. He lost everything, and his toy trains were sold off piece by piece. Imagine blowing your life savings to live inside the world's saddest Thomas the Tank Engine episode. 37. A millionaire once decided he could beat the system by hoarding copper pennies. He was convinced inflation would make the metal more valuable than the coin. So he spent years stockpiling literal tons of pennies in storage lockers. Spoiler, it never paid off. He went bankrupt, surrounded by 20 tons of loose change that couldn't even cover the rent on the warehouses. He basically turned his fortune into the world's heaviest piggy bank, only to find out no one wanted it. 38. A celebrity once spent millions on exotic pets, including a private kangaroo. Problem: kangaroos aren't lapdogs. Within weeks, it trashed his mansion, broke furniture, and punched a bodyguard in the chest. The costs skyrocketed until he had to give it away. He lost the house, the fortune, and ended up known as the guy who lost everything to a marsupial. At least when the bank repossesses a car, it doesn't kick you in the ribs on its way out. 39. A woman invested her savings in an immersive dinner theater where guests dined in complete silence while actors stared at them. She thought it was avant-garde. Customers thought it was hostage training with food. It flopped spectacularly, draining her entire inheritance. She ended up broke, with nothing to show for it but a pile of unused black curtains and traumatized Yelp reviews. Somewhere, Olive Garden executives toasted to her failure with unlimited breadsticks. 40. A man blew millions building a replica of the Titanic in his backyard. Not a model, a full-size fake ship sitting on land in the middle of nowhere. He planned to turn it into a tourist attraction, but it never opened because, surprise, nobody wants to vacation at a half-finished boat in a cornfield. He drowned in debt faster than the actual Titanic sank, except this time, the iceberg was his own stupidity. 41. A pro athlete spent his fortune buying a chain of car washes. Sounds responsible, until you learn he hired his entire extended family to run them. They stole everything: cash, supplies, even the soap. Within a year, the business collapsed. He didn't just lose money, he lost it squeaky clean. Somewhere, a cousin is still washing his Ford with stolen suds, while the athlete is washing dishes for rent. 42. A lottery winner spent millions on plastic surgery, convinced he could turn himself into an A-list Hollywood actor. After dozens of procedures, he looked less like Brad Pitt and more like a melted action figure. He blew through his fortune on surgeries, recovery, and publicists who politely avoided saying the word horrifying. The only role he landed was cautionary tale, and it didn't pay. 43. A wealthy heiress lost her entire trust fund investing in a startup that promised bottled moonlight. Yes, moonlight. They claimed to capture light from the moon in jars and sell it as a luxury product. She bought in hard. The company collapsed when customers realized it was just mason jars with LEDs inside. She didn't just lose money, she lost to the dollar store nightlight industry. 44. A man went broke trying to become a professional treasure hunter. He spent millions on boats, gear, and psychics who claimed to know where Spanish gold was buried. After years of searching, the only treasure he found was rusted beer cans and his own financial ruin. Pirates stole treasure. This guy just stole from himself. 45. A rapper once lost millions buying designer sneakers, not to sell, just to wear once and throw away. His closets were filled with rare shoes he never touched again. When the money dried up, he had to pawn them, only to realize used sneakers don't exactly hold their investment value. He went from Air Jordans to Air bankruptcy in record time. 46. A man spent his entire inheritance on a haunted hotel business. He bought a rundown motel, filled it with fake skeletons, and promised guests a paranormal experience. But when customers didn't see any ghosts, they left bad reviews. The business collapsed, leaving him broke and stuck with 200 plastic skulls. He wanted to build the next Disneyland of horror, but all he created was a spirit Halloween with plumbing issues. 47. A millionaire spent his fortune hoarding vintage wine, except he didn't know how to store it. He left crates of rare bottles in his hot garage for years. By the time he tried to sell them, they had turned into expensive vinegar. His million-dollar collection became salad dressing. Imagine explaining to creditors that your portfolio aged about as well as milk. 48. A man lost his entire business chasing UFO sightings. He spent millions building a research center in the desert, complete with telescopes, bunkers, and alien murals. Tourists never came, investors bailed, and eventually he had to sell the property. The only thing he discovered was how quickly money can vanish without extraterrestrial help. Area 51 didn't bankrupt him. He did that himself. 49. A woman inherited millions and decided to invest in luxury pigeon racing. She built elaborate coops, hired trainers, and entered international competitions. Problem: Her pigeons weren't champions. They were just fat birds that wandered off. She lost everything to an industry that was basically gambling on animals too dumb to find their way home. She didn't just throw money away, she literally trained it to fly off into the sky. 50. A man blew through a fortune trying to create the world's most expensive sandwich. He imported gold leaf bread, caviar, truffles, and cheese aged longer than most marriages. The cost per sandwich was thousands of dollars, and, shocking absolutely no one, nobody bought it. He went broke, proving once and for all that Subway's $5 footlong was still the smarter investment. 51. And finally, the crown jewel of financial stupidity, a man who literally set his fortune on fire, on purpose. He thought burning money on live stream would make him famous, so he stacked piles of cash, lit them up, and filmed the flames. Spoiler, it didn't make him famous, it just made him broke. His empire went up in smoke, literally. Forget losing money on ostriches, ghosts, or SpongeBob chains. This guy managed to lose everything by doing the one thing every parent warns their kid not to do: play with fire. Congratulations, sir. You didn't just waste money, you cremated it. Mic drop. And there you have it, an Olympic parade of financial faceplants so dumb they make bankruptcy look like a lifestyle brand. Which one wins the gold medal in stupidity? Drop your vote in the comments, add your own favorite money disasters, and if you survived this madness, you know what to do. Hit like, subscribe, and brace yourself, because trust me, it only gets dumber from here.